Morning or afternoon for some of you. Welcome to today's webinar hosted by the American Academy of Pediatrics and HealthyChildren.org. Today we are talking with Sesame Street in Communities Director of Content Design, Kama Einhorn, about the many creative ways Sesame Street is helping families stay healthy both in mind and in body. And we'll meet Lily, a new friend on Sesame Street, whose journey to stay healthy helps kids better understand tough topics like food insecurity, so all families know how to access healthy food that fits into their grocery budget. But before we begin, a few housekeeping items. This webinar is being recorded, so if you lose connectivity for any reason, you will be able to watch and listen to the archived webinar, which should be posted in a few days on our website. If we can help you with any technical issues during the webinar, please use the chat function to send us a message. And we will have time at the end of the webinar for a question and answer session. To ask a question, please use the chat function. You can activate chat by clicking on the speech bubble at the bottom center of your screen or the person-shaped icon for mobile users. You can send in your questions at any time, and we'll get to as many as we can at the end of the presentation. Without further ado, let me introduce our host, Dr. Jennifer Shu. Dr. Shu is a practicing pediatrician, author, and mom in Atlanta. She is the co-author of Heading Home with Your Newborn and Food Fights, a frequent guest on national and local television, radio, and web-based programs. She's also served as the Living Well health expert for CNN.com, has contributed medical information to Baby Center and WebMD, and serves on the Parents Magazine Advisory Board. And finally, she is the medical editor of HealthyChildren.org, the official parenting website of the AAP. Dr. Shu, welcome.
Thank you so much for having us here today. I'm really excited to have this conversation with Sesame Street in Communities and learn all about the great work they're doing. It's my pleasure to introduce our speaker, Kama Einhorn. As Director of Content Design for Sesame Workshop's U.S. Social Impact Group, Kama develops multimedia outreach materials for children, parents, and providers. Prior to joining the workshop, she wrote and edited early childhood teaching resources for Scholastic. She also holds a master's degree in education from University of California at Berkeley. Welcome, Kama.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today, and thanks to the whole AAP team for making this happen.
Great. Well, many of us know that Sesame Workshop is the organization behind Sesame Street, but most people probably don't know that you do a whole lot more. Can you tell us a little bit about Sesame's missions and social impact initiatives to promote healthier families and communities?
As you see right here, our mission is to help kids grow smarter, stronger, and kinder. And Sesame Street started in 1969 with the mission of addressing the literacy crisis, the fact that children did not have access to universal preschool, and many children were entering kindergarten at a real disadvantage. So the experiment was, can we use television to teach the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, these fundamentals? As the decades have passed, children's needs have evolved, and we are constantly addressing the most pressing needs of young children, many in the social emotional realm, and serving those most vulnerable. So in this initiative, we took special care to address vulnerable families who were having trouble getting enough nutritious food for their families, but all children in the area of nutrition, of food literacy, which we'll go into a bit later. But Sesame Street and Communities.org is a mission-based group within the company, and all of these materials are free and bilingual.
Excellent. So there are so many topics, as you mentioned. How do you prioritize which ones to tackle first?
We have such a long wish list at any given time of children of particular communities and children's needs that we would like to address. Our group is philanthropically based. So as different needs emerge, we work to secure funding. And as soon as we do, we're able to assemble an advisory board where we go to the experts around the country in different sectors. They may be directly working with children and families, they may be researching, they may be advocates. And we assemble them and we're able to learn everything about the state of the issue in the country today. So from there, we figure out how we can use Muppet power to address the needs, right? We've learned the needs, we've learned which resources families and children and the providers who serve them need the most. And we figure out how we can use our furry-friendly Muppets to do the job in speaking to children and also in speaking to parents, because we know that the Muppets have a direct line to the hearts of adults as well as children. So we figure out what content we can create. What videos can we make to get these messages across? What kind of storybooks? What kind of printable pages? What can we say to providers? How can we help them in their job caring for children and families? And then we research those ideas and we bring them to parents and providers to get feedback on how they will land with them. So a lot of our work is in research, and that was how Sesame Street started. Everything was very heavily researched in formative testing. We continue to create and develop the content, put it out there on our site, sesamestreetincommunities.org, which I believe will be up in the chat. And then it is implemented by partners around the country, organizations serving children and families, notably the AAP here.
I love how you use the Muppets to help teach a lesson and really systematize that message. I think that's fantastic. One thing you touched on earlier was some nutritional literacy, some healthy eating for children. What is the exact focus of this healthy eating initiative?
Yes, so it has several different strands and we'll sort of unpack them here. But we wanted to reach a wide audience. In the pandemic, what we learned from advisors, and I think everybody here from their own experience, was there was an opportunity to build what we're calling kitchen literacy or nutritional literacy, essentially effectively running a kitchen where we can serve our families the nutritious food that they need. That often meant really considering leftovers, what is shelf stable, what can be frozen, and ways to meet the needs of picky eaters, for instance, choosy eaters, while avoiding a lot of food waste in those darkest days of the pandemic. I also wanted to mention, though, before I forget, that I know we have a combination of parents and health providers here, and those working in organizations who serve them. So I just encourage you to, everything that we're covering here, to look at it through the lens of what you need. All the resources that we're going to discuss are available on the site. So you should go in, and they're designed to be used very flexibly, either on your own with your children or with the families and children that you serve. So there are many ways to share these materials. You can sit with children and watch them on your own. You can print out the materials. Providers can print it out and leave stacks in waiting rooms, possibly show videos like in a constant loop in waiting areas, email them to families that they serve, and so on. And I'm sure you'll have many other ideas. They're also viewable in any device that you have, whether big or little. So with kitchen and nutritional literacy, we learned that so much learning can happen in the kitchen, right? The kitchen is a classroom in itself. Children can learn the basics of food preparation. They can help plan meals with the family. When they're involved, they may be more likely to try new foods and to build those healthy habits that we're looking to instill. Families and children can learn to look at nutrition labels, as well as follow directions in preparing food together. Can develop some fine motor skills there with stirring, with cutting, with child-safe knives, and so on. So basics of math and science, right? Food is full of science, and our bodies themselves are sort of their own science experiments in how what we eat affects our bodies. We also wanted to build awareness of reducing food waste, and just continue to model these healthy habits for children, and encourage them to continue trying new foods to develop those new tastes. So kitchen and nutritional literacy is the first main strand of this content. The second strand, we're calling mindful awareness of food sources. And we know that the more aware we are of our food sources, the healthier choices we are likely to make, and the less food we are likely to waste. Knowing how food gets to our table, and reminding children that so many people helped to make that happen, from the farmers who grew the food to those who harvested, put it on trucks, brought it to stores, and then the people in the stores who got it to our plates. So having this awareness and gratitude helps us slow down, appreciate our food more, be more aware of the choices we make and how they ultimately help us feel. The third strand, very important, reaching out for help. So we wanted to inspire parents to model this really important act of reaching out for help. We know that there are more vulnerable families now than ever in terms of food insecurity and the challenge in getting their families the nutritious food that they need on a budget. So we wanted to show parents that reaching out is an act of strength and that they can model this resourcefulness and this resilience for their children, and children will remember that behavior for a lifetime. And that will be a model for them, that asking for help is a smart thing to do, and it's a brave thing to do. The stigma around not having enough food and needing help is great. So whatever we can do, and we use the Muppets to model it a lot, whatever we can do to lessen that stigma and get families where they need to be will be valuable.
So this is our new character that you were telling us about. What does Lily represent, and how does she help teach this important message?
Well, you can see Lily is a good buddy of Elmo's. So in a lot of our work, we develop new Muppets to sort of represent an issue. We might call them the ambassador Muppets. So Lily is a little girl who has moved to Sesame Street, and her family has experienced a multitude of challenges. We wanted to show that she and her family are resilient. So we meet them at the end of their period of challenge. Her parents have reached out for help. They have gotten the support that they need. We're showing them as part of a healthy and supportive community. And we see that they have experienced food insecurity. There is a food pantry on Sesame Street where she now volunteers with her family because she's in the position of paying it forward. She knows that caring adults have helped her and her family get the food they need, and she feels a lot of empathy for other children in her position. So when we develop a new Muppet like this, we carefully consider how old he or she should be. Should they be a human puppet or a monster puppet? Here we wanted her to be as relatable to young children as possible. So she is what's called a humanoid Muppet, and she is playful and optimistic. That was an important piece. We wanted to get in the hopefulness and the optimism that is available to families in crisis. And we wanted her to simply be a model, right? We wanted children to look at her and be inspired by her ideas, and you'll see some of them in action in the videos. So here she is. We wanted to show her visiting real children, and we'll share a couple of these videos. In the first, about leftovers, you'll see her with a family in Brooklyn, the Aliceas, who are really focusing on meal planning with children and considering how to make leftovers last all week. So I will mute myself while we watch this very short video.
Oh, wow, this chalkboard, I can't believe it. You wrote all those foods down? Hey, Livy, I see a word up there that starts with B. That would be beans, and I love beans. Do you like beans?
Yeah, I love beans.
Oh, well, what are you gonna make?
We're having arroz con habichuelas for dinner tonight with rice and roasted veggies.
Wow, that sounds so yummy. Did you help plan what you would eat tonight?
Me and my sister planned.
Really?
Yeah, do you guys remember when we went to the grocery store yesterday and got all the ingredients? You remember? That's great. All right, guys, are we ready to do this? We gotta go grocery shopping.
Sure.
Do our compra for the week. Okay, so first, what do we want to eat this week? What are we thinking about?
Chili.
Chili?
Beans.
Beans. Okay. Let's
Bean
do
chili.
beans.
Bean chili.
Ooh. A big pot of habichuelas because then we can use the beans for the chili.
Yeah, and also tacos. Bean tacos.
Every week, the family makes a meal plan. They talk together about what they want to eat.
Let's go.
Then, they write the foods they need on their chalkboard. They don't like to waste food, so they choose foods that can be used in lots of different ways.
Okay. Elena, what do you want to eat this week, baby?
Beans.
This week, they're making beans because they can be used in lots of meals.
Kama, what are we going to watch next? Is there another video coming up? Okay, here we go.
Video number 2.
Chef Lily here, and my dad says it's really important for us to eat lots of healthy fruits and vegetables every day. But guess what? You don't have to eat them, you can drink them. That's right. My dad, well, he puts frozen mango, frozen spinach, and banana into a blender. And then he adds a little bit of milk, and then he pushes the button. And well, it gets pretty loud, but only for a few moments. And it mixes everything together, and you get this great, delicious green breakfast smoothie. You know what I like about it? It looks a little bit like my friend Oscar the Grouch. So why don't you try drinking some of your fruits and vegetables too?
Thank you so much for those great video examples.
So as you saw in each, we know that getting enough healthy food to your family's table can be a challenge, but there are so many strategies and resources that we have on the site and that there are out there that can help. So you saw Lily watch those real strategies in action with a real family, and you also see her being a chef and feeling really proud of herself, that she's got some healthy habits at home, that she makes smoothies with her family, and she'd like to teach other children. So she's in charge, she's proud, she's showing that that confidence that we hope to develop in children around building their own healthy habits.
Excellent. As a reminder, if you look in your chat, the website is included there, and that's sesamestreetandcommunities.org. We will now just go straight into our question and answers. Many of these tie in exactly to what you've been talking about. I like how you use the term choosy eater, maybe as opposed to picky eater. Choosy eater has a much more positive connotation, I think. It sounds more like you're being selective instead of being finicky. So I love that term. One question from the audience regarding choosy eaters is specifically regarding making leftovers last. You know, a lot of times in my house, we have leftovers and they just sit in the refrigerator for a long time, longer than I'd like. So how would you suggest that families make use of the leftovers, especially if they have a choosy eater in the home?
The challenge of the leftovers plus choosy eater is real. And luckily there are some very easy strategies that parents can try. We have some printable pages on the site that really detail the leftover strategies, as well as an article on choosy eaters. So the main point, I think, here to this question is to find ways to freeze the leftovers in small portions. So for choosy eaters, if you've got, say, the habichuelas that the family that we saw have, that those can be frozen. The big pot of beans can be frozen in small portions, even a self-sealing plastic bag, right? So that they can thaw easily and that you can continue to offer choosy eaters small portions of a food. We know it takes so many tries of a new food, more than 10, before children may develop a taste for it. So to be able to keep offering food to choosy eaters without wasting it would be a real win. We also recommend that parents look at what children are eating and are liking. For instance, if they're a big fan of sweet potatoes, that can be what's called a food bridge, and that can be an opportunity to introduce something that's close to a sweet potato, like carrots. And again, these are foods that will save as leftovers well, whether frozen or in the refrigerator. And then, of course, there are other strategies for reducing food waste. including looking at what is shelf stable and things like that. And you can find those details on some of the printable pages.
Another reminder that this session is being recorded, so if you're missing any of the information, you can go back and watch it at a later time. We will be sending out the link when it's available. Our next question is regarding resilience. You did mention that Lily's family was resilient in dealing with their food insecurity. What other types of information do you have in your resources for resilience in children?
So much of our work is based around the concept of resilience and how adults can build that in children, and how adults can model resilience. And it can be something that adults and children are learning at the same time, right? It's fine for children to watch adults learn that and do that alongside them. So on sesamestreetandcommunities.org, you'll actually find an entire topic on building resilience in young children. A lot of that is around first creating a sense of safety and security for children so that they can build those important emotional skills within themselves. A lot of resilience, we've learned, is about having hope for a circumstance to change, for your own ability to build the skills, to make a plan, to move through a challenge and get to your goal on the other side. So the way we present materials includes some playfulness, of course, because it's with children, but a lot of hope and a lot of optimism. And the idea of looking at setbacks as an opportunity to what we call bounce back, right? If you think about resilience as the ability to overcome challenges, it means that we can recover more quickly from the challenge. And you can think about that as a bounce, right? That's the sort of playful, kid-friendly way to look at it, and the metaphor of bouncing back. So to remain hopeful, to be able to reassure children with that sense of safety and security and the comforting words, to model, for parents to model their own resilience. But I invite you to look at a lot of our topics, especially on the most challenging topics, such as food insecurity, family homelessness, the really tough topics in children and families' lives, and general traumatic experiences. And unfortunately, there's a long list of possibilities there. But the underlying theme of most of these is resilience building that can be a foundation that can last a lifetime.
Excellent. So, regarding things like choosy eaters and building resilience, there are questions about what about children with autism who have their unique set of challenges? What resources does Sesame Street and Communities have to address the needs of children with autism?
We also have an autism initiative. I'm happy to share. We developed a Muppet called Julia many years ago, and there's a lot of content on sesamestreetandcommunities.org in the autism topic. So there you'll find a lot of videos, storybooks, games, articles. There's a lot of professional development training around these materials for you providers in the audience. And in terms of the strategies, we have a lot in that topic that is around building flexibility, especially in the context of the pandemic. We created a lot of those materials because we know that routines are something that can really make a child with autism's day go a bit more smoothly. So in terms of eating, when everything was changing, what parents can do to keep certain set routines, to know that, to be able to show children that some things will not change. We also offer some coping strategies for adults who are caring for children with autism. But please meet Julia on the site. She's a wonderful little girl, and you can read about a lot of her experiences, both with food and with other challenges around flexibility.
That's great. Our next question has to do with school readiness, and your background is in education. There's so much education going on in these initiatives. Is there a resource for parents to help decide when their child is ready to go to kindergarten or pre-K and things like that, and their learning for children?
Sure. We know that that learning and cognitive development, all brain development, is crucial for succeeding in school as well as in life. So there's a lot of resources on school readiness. In fact, there's a whole topic on it, just like there's this whole topic that we're covering now on healthy eating and the one I just mentioned around autism. So if you go to the school readiness topic on sesamestreetandcommunities.org, you'll find a lot of materials there in a lot of different sort of buckets. There's the basics, the ABCs and 1, 2, 3s, right? Materials you can offer children that build those basic skills, that develop a love of reading, a love of learning. So there's science materials, math materials, vocabulary building, and just a really wide variety of developing, flexible thinking, problem solving, all of the thinking skills needed to succeed in the classroom, as well as the social emotional piece, because we know that school is not just about learning those basics like ABCs and 1, 2, 3s. It's about cooperating and making friends and sharing and taking turns and listening, right? And developing empathy. Those social emotional skills that children can really build in these very early years to ease their way in school. There's also a lot of professional development materials on the site around the topic of school readiness, but we know that school readiness is something that, every part of a child's life is related to, right? What they're learning at home, how they're coping with challenges, everything plays out in a school setting. Just as there's so much learning that happens in a kitchen, there's so much of life that happens in a classroom. So the classroom is sort of a microcosm for the world, for a child's world, and it can be a real anchor in children's lives. So when they have success in school, they're building confidence, they're proud of themselves, and they can really follow their interests, set their own goals, and feel a real sense of control and efficacy in their life, much like Lily has in these materials. She's learned, she knows what's going on, and she wants to teach. She wants to share what she's learned. She's proud of herself, and we want to help all children in their school experiences do the same.
Okay, in keeping in line with the education piece, our next question has to do with a few different things. Any thoughts about digital learning, and what about families who don't have access to technology? Are physical books better? And then what about the concern that maybe too much screen time is not a good thing? Does Sesame Street and Communities address any of those things?
Sure. We actually, I just want to thank the AAP in particular and healthychildren.org for publishing such clear guidelines around screen time. They've been very helpful to all of us at Sesame Street. And Dr. Shu, I'll let you share the actual number since I don't have it in front of me. But of course, we know that screen time is a big issue in children's lives and families' lives, that it's important to set the limit and also to be realistic about the demands, especially during the pandemic. We know that it was a real challenge to minimize that screen time. In terms of reading on screen, we of course have a lot of storybooks on the site that are digital. We always encourage parents to engage with their children while they are on screen. So if children will be experiencing a storybook on screen, it is read aloud to them in a voiceover on the screen, but parents reading to children is even better, and talking about what they see on each page. And any screen time will be the child will benefit from as much adult interaction as possible, as much sort of co-viewing and engagement as possible. And we always promote public libraries as a way to get a variety of books into children's hands. Going to get a library card can be a fun thing to do with children. And Dr. Shu, would you like to just briefly state, if you have it top of mind, the screen time guidelines for young children?
Yeah, I just want to let our attendees know that if you look in our chat section, there is the link to the AAP's media plan. So just kind of common sense guidelines to screen time and other, other guidelines and limits for children. I think a few things, just big picture items come to mind. And the first thing is screen time should not take the place of interaction with parents and other quality caregivers. I think the co-viewing and that interaction piece is so important. And the other thing that I stress to my patients is screen time should not take the place of other activities, productive activities such as reading and exercise. And for the kids that in my practice who have maybe too much screen time, I challenge them to match their screen time with exercise. And so you get some screen time for your educational purposes, but if you want to go above and beyond that, match it, half an hour of screen time, you have to do half an hour of physical activity as well. And I find that when you challenge them to do that, the balance is much better. So, but yeah, so thank you for addressing that in your initiatives as well. Another question has to do with the Sesame Street and Communities focus. You do so much great work for young children and their families and caregivers. What about these families whose children are getting older, let's say? Any recommendations on resources for them?
Our focus really is birth to age 6, but we know that older siblings play such an important role in the lives of young children, and that many older children, teens and even tweens, still carry their appreciation of Sesame Street and might really enjoy engaging with younger siblings that way. But as in terms of our content, it is really intended for children age 0 to 6, sometimes up to about age 8, depending on the topic. They can benefit from it. But these relationships that the youngest children have with older children, whether it's a sibling or a member of the extended family or family friends, we know that those dynamics are a bit different than playing alongside a peer, and that can benefit both children, no matter the age.
And some of these concepts may translate well to older children and adults too. We have people of all ages who are choosy eaters and people of all ages who can benefit from learning more resilience. So thank you for covering that. I wanted to share the slide here on how to get more information in Text Sesame. And I'd like to turn over the presentation to the AAP to wrap things up. And I wanted to really thank Kama Einhorn for joining us today and all of you participants for tuning in.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shu, and thank you, everyone.
Okay, thank you both. We want to remind participants to register on healthychildren.org to receive our e-newsletter, a personalized homepage, and special offers. And don't forget to follow healthychildren.org on Instagram, Facebook, Pinterest, and Twitter. We hope you enjoyed today's webinar. Keep an eye out for a quick survey and let us know what you found most helpful and any suggestions you may have. And a special thank you to our partner, Sesame Street in Communities. Thank you for joining us.